So welcome back to the Leadership Podcast of Victory. It's been a while since we've been on, and because we've been doing some live stuff, but I am so excited to be joined by the one and only Kenzie Kober for this. I said your name weird. Kenzie Kober. And Kenzie is one of our church members here, but she is a lot more than that. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, where'd you come from?
Okay, so my name is Kenzie
Kober.
Kober.
Speech impediment I have.
That's okay. So I'm actually from small town in Iowa, Louisiana.
Woo.
So grew up in Iowa, and I was homeschooled.
I was about to say go Yellow Jackets.
So
but,
I was homeschooled.
Homeschooled.
And worked
okay.
at Chick-fil-A. So, I've just got it all going for me. When you just have both of those, I was the homeschooler,
Homeschool Chick-fil-A.
So
nice.
Grew up in Iowa, and then when I was 18 years old, I moved to North Carolina. So I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for a few years, then moved back home, and now I currently live in California. And so kind of been a little bit all over the place.
That is so
kind of
exciting.
Skipped college and kind of just started off my career really early. So.
All right, so what did you do in North Carolina?
So I moved to I didn't necessarily move to North Carolina. I went for an internship at Elevation Church. And so they offered like this 3-month internship. So I was like, cool, I'm going to go get equipped for ministry, come back home, bring it to the local church. And when I was there, I felt God kind of pushing me to move there. And so I was like, okay, am I just going to pack up and move? And that's exactly what I did. So I think at that time I was 19, and I remember coming home for 2 weeks, and I packed up my bags, packed up everything, and I got in my car and I moved back to North Carolina. And I remember probably crying most of the way there thinking, what am I doing? There was some potential jobs lined up, but it was still a pretty big scary risk.
I guess so, being that young
19.
And moving away. But again, a lot of 19-year-olds move away to go to college. But you, the uncertainty, not knowing, that's crazy. So what about California? What's going on in California?
So in California, that was another crazy kind of big move. But right now I'm partnered up with a ministry called the Circuit Riders. And so I'm not full-time doing ministry, but just involved in the day-to-day life there, in community, and then kind of just doing what I do on the side while I'm living there in Huntington Beach area.
Ooh,
so it is
all the surfers. Yeah.
All the surfers.
I love Huntington Beach area.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
so
incredible.
we went to California last May. That's one of our favorite drives. Is we were actually in San Diego at that time, but we drove from San Diego Highway 1 all the way to Laguna Beach. So you drive, and then Huntington Beach. Oh gosh.
I'm not gonna lie. I've been my biggest dream since while I've been in quarantine back home is when I think of my first day back in California, I just can't wait to go to Whole Foods and drive across the beach. That's my favorite thing to do is go to the grocery store with the beautiful drive.
There is a skateboard company.
Things.
I think I may have told you this already, but there's a skateboard company that I've been begging my wife, Kayla, if you're listening, to buy me a skateboard because I like to longboard because I like to surf. And yes, Louisiana boy does like to surf in California whenever I go. And so I love surfing. Last time I went, the water was 50 degrees because I went in May. And it was so cold I could only surf for an hour because I was cramping so hard. But there's a company called Handboards. I'm not promoting them, but anyway, they make 6-foot longboards that are like surfboards, and it's like surfing on the concrete. So I think you can demo them in Huntington Beach. That's where their main office.
My biggest dream is to surf, and I haven't done that yet. I have a lot of friends who surf,
and
I live in a home. Fun fact, with 20-something people. So there's that right in Huntington. So
she lives in a commune.
Basically, I do. It's the most fun thing in the entire world. But there's
awesome.
Lots of you go downstairs and there's just we must have 10 bikes and 10 longboards and all of the things.
So you ever go longboarding on the sidewalk and all that?
I do. I longboard to the beach and just a real California. You just have to. Do you even live in California if you haven't longboarded?
Oh my! This leadership podcast is turning to California dreaming.
Okay,
we're
done.
What we're doing. Sorry, my heart. Oh, I love California. I really do.
It's a beautiful
but I also
place.
love New York City too. So when I go to places like that,
total opposite.
I know it is. The first time we went to New York, I told my wife, I said, I don't think I'm going to like New York because I love LA so much. I love the beach, and not so much the beach, but just the LA open and the beaches and the surf and all that. I love the California lifestyle. I know that sounds weird, but I love the city of New York also. And so, you know why though? Because it does inspire me as a leader.
Yeah.
Like when you look around, because there's something when people are pursuing their dreams and their passion, it ignites something in me. And it's like passion brews passion, and that's what I experience when I go to those places.
It's so true. You really pick things off of cities, and what I've learned from like moving away, coming back, and having like a lot of these different experiences is it really like it boosts you, and it like gives you almost like this pioneer spirit where you're almost more so drawn. Like I'm so thankful to be from where I'm from, because anytime I go away, it's almost like this coming back back to that simple country life where I feel so blessed to almost have that best of both, to know like, oh, I love the busyness, I love the big cities, but there's also nothing like living in a small town where you get to really pioneer and see change and be kind of on the front lines.
Yeah, and as a leader, my quote that I always tell myself is, why not here?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go to California, New York, Houston, a big city to accomplish what God has for you to accomplish. You can do that. The dream will work here just as much as it will work in the big city lights too. Yeah. So same thing. But I wanted to get Kenzie on here because something happened this past week, and that's why I texted you. But you, I almost want to say you're like a little fireball, but it's more than that. You are a person who does live from passion. From the first time I heard your name from John Till, shout out to John Till. John Till said, hey, there's this girl, Kenzie, who was interning at Elevation. She's really great. I think she's back in Sulphur. You need to get to know her. And he just told me about you and just kind of how you lived and how passionate you were and just how much of a leader you were. And so I've known about Kenzie for a long time, but I've never actually got to know her. And the first time I got to know you, I'm like, oh, wow. There's so much about you. And so I'm not trying to make you have a big head, but there is so much about you. And then you are an entrepreneur. And let's talk about that aspect. So not only has she done all these ministry things and your business that you started, that you pioneered this, right? Yes. Like this is your baby.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell them what your baby is? And if you're a foodie, listen up.
Okay.
The Harvest.
The Harvest. And so, yeah, I started this small business called Harvest Waffles, and it's a pop-up food stand. And so I sell gluten-free vegan waffles with all of the toppings, and it's almost like a little pop-up party. And it's actually been 1 year ago. It's around this time last year. And so this week, it's been 1 whole year, which is crazy.
That is awesome, though.
Yeah. And so even going back to, it's crazy, like you were saying, everything leads to something. And I just wanted to go back to when I did make that move, going back to Charlotte, North Carolina. I remember going back, and on my way, there was this dream job I had, but I just thought I'm so unqualified for this. And so one time I was getting lunch with a friend that was a worship leader where I was working at Elevation, and this girl asked me a simple question. She's like, how do you feel about social media? And she worked for a huge ministry called Proverbs 31 Ministries, which is like huge, like Lisa Turkers, a lot of us know what that is. And I was like, okay, let's just like get lunch. I want to learn more about you. And so when she asked me, how do you feel about social media? I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like I love it. And right then and there, this girl offers me a position to come on for the summer.
Oh, wow.
And I remember thinking like, oh my goodness, like I'm so unqualified for this. So I'm thinking, what is this going to look like? So when I was on my way back, I knew there was this potential. And so I just remember telling God like, what am I going to do? And I remember somebody looking at me and saying, Kenzie, the role was like this like project manager. And I was like, I don't even know what a project manager is. Like, how am I going to do this? And the best advice I got in that moment was like, you just have to fake it till you make it.
Right.
Well, long story short, I ended up going on for the summer, ended up getting hired on. So fast forward, and there's a lot in between that. But I think all of those things led me to where I'm at now, where it's like food business. I am not even a great cook. I don't even didn't know much about business. And so I feel like all of those steps, it's leading you and preparing you of like, okay, God equipped me then to be able to do that. And so with waffles, there's a lot of like other things that maybe started it, but it was totally outside of my comfort zone. All I knew was I loved waffles and I loved bringing people together.
You know, one thing I love about you and your personality and what you do with your life is I feel like you have a continual yes, Lord. Like whatever if God puts it on your heart, I know there's probably got to be a little bit of fear in there because we're all human. Like, okay, what if this doesn't work? But you are gung-ho, yes, Lord, I'm going to do this. Even, like you said, not even knowing what a project manager is, and to go work for a big ministry like Proverbs 31. But how do you feel that experience has prepared you for what you're doing right now?
Yeah, both Elevation and Proverbs, I think I really learned the tools of just practical, learning how to do things in excellence, learning how to show up and figure it out. If you don't know, figure it out, get equipped, go to conferences, read books, read leadership. So although I was in ministry, most of our time was trainings and productivity, and I really learned how to be productive and how to like do to-do lists, set goals, and achieve goals. Like, we, one time as a social media team, they wanted us to start recording videos on Instagram stories when that started getting big. And so our marketing director just looked at me and said, you've got to tell yourself you're a video producer. I don't care if you're doing Instagram stories, you are a video producer. Yeah. And that just put that mindset in me of like, okay, whatever I'm doing, like I have to do this like in excellence, every little thing. Right. And so that season ended up lasting 3 years, all into thinking, okay, this is the dream. And that's kind of what I've learned is you can arrive somewhere thinking you're ultimately at the dream. Right. And then I'll never forget, it was probably almost 3 years later when I knew there was like this shift coming. And that's when I kind of quit everything, which is the season that led me into doing business. Really started with kind of coming to a place of never wanting to move back home. I never wanted to do anything remotely. Yeah. We all have those stories, you know, like we're living this dream, we're doing these things. And then I remember God just telling me, I want you to quit everything. And I remember running downstairs when I felt the Lord like telling me to do that. And I was like, what am I going to do? I told my roommate, I was like, I think I'm supposed to quit my job. And she's like, well, what do you feel like you're supposed to do? And I was like, I think I'm supposed to go back to Lake Charles and make smoothies. And I literally, that is where I swear it all began. I knew the Lord was saying, I want you to go home. You're going to work at a place. You're going to be making smoothies. And that really led me into a season of coming back home, quitting everything. I planned this road trip, went to California for a couple of weeks, went to John Till, went to some friends in Florida, and then I came home. And my plan was, I'm just going to get a little job. I'll make smoothies on the side for 3 months, and then I'm going to move. And I planned on moving. And I came home, and God just broke my heart for this city, put this pioneer just like spirit in me. And I started doing like a lot of events on McNeese campus and bringing people together, pouring into college students. Like for the first time in my life, I just came alive doing life outside of the church and outside of ministry. And I realized like, it was like almost this whole new lens I was seeing life through of like, if I can gather people here in the ministry world, and I won't go into a lot of that because I know we're talking about leading into Harvest Waffles, but that is what kind of gave me that mindset of, okay, I want to learn how to gather people outside of the walls of the church. How are all these experiences led me to here? So what's crazy is I could have looked at that as, oh my goodness, I'm taking a bunch of steps backwards. Like I quit everything. I quit my full-time job to work part-time to make smoothies so I can go on a college campus that I'm not even a student at, so I can talk to a bunch of college students, you know, about Jesus. This makes no sense. I was gathering women in my backyard all the time, just doing all these things, and all of that, working at Main Squeeze led me to starting Harvest Waffles. And it was in that place where I had the freedom and time, because I was working a side job, to pioneer a new business. It was through smoothies that made me fall in love with health and creating a beautiful atmosphere, and all of that led me to Harvest Waffles being birthed. And so I just encourage people, like, a lot of the times our dreams are hidden between a bunch of things that are just closed doors. And it took a lot of no's to give my yes to the best thing.
That is really good. Like, I love how before we press record on all these, we were talking, and I was nervous because I'm like, man, this is so good. I should go hit record. But talking about how little things lead up to little things lead up to little things. And they always, you know, the old wise quote that says, it's not the destination, it's the journey to the destination. And that's how I feel even about your story, is one thing led to another. But if you would have said, no, I'm not moving back here, or no this, then I don't know if the circuit riders thing would have happened. I don't know, you know, honestly. And by you saying yes, that continual yes, Lord, this may not look exactly like what I thought in my head, but you're still God. You're still you still number my steps. So God, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do what you tell me to do. And one thing leads to another in leadership like that. And so I'm amazed by it.
It's like that ebb and flow of life, because even through that, there was a season where I was doing all of this on campus. I was bringing circuit riders in this ministry to our city. We were doing these big events, and I remember thinking, like, oh my goodness, like what I would do to be in California, being able to do ministry with them. And God was just so clear, like, these are your people, this is your place. Don't look to the left or the right. Stay where you're at. Keep walking, keep walking. And then I felt this release all of a sudden for business. And I've always just dreamed of being able to have a business where I can be free to do ministry and have like the financial freedom where I'm like, I'm doing this and I get to be free to do this. And so it's crazy. All of those steps led me to starting Harvest Waffles, all into again, quitting that, and then getting to do this, going to California. But it was through those steps of pioneering business that led me to be able to have the financial freedom to go and do ministry. And so I just had to wait, and it ended up being better than I could have imagined.
One thing I'm really connecting with you on is our mission here at our church. And if you're watching, you're not part of our church. Our mission is for people to live on mission, and no matter what they do. And so I've always dreamed of having ministry opportunities outside the four walls of the church. And I think that is where the marketplace. Yeah. I remember I was in Colorado Springs, Colorado in 2003 or 2002, and there was a pastor there at New Life Church, Ted Haggard, before all the craziness with Ted Haggard, but he talked about the importance of having your ministries in the marketplace, to have ministers where it's not in the four walls of the church. And that connected with me, even with me filming. And since the quarantine, we have filmed 60 bands. Wow. I know, crazy, right?
A lot.
But being around these guys they don't know who we are.
Yeah.
All of them talk about our film crew. Well, our film crew is guys who come to our church, and they're always like, there's something different about your guys. They're not like typical roadie production guys. I'm like, there's so much to us that you have no idea. But we've gotten to pray with people. We've gotten to actually counsel somebody whose wife left him a couple months ago. And you know what I'm saying? It's just, and that's the ministry, I believe, that's going to be in the forefront moving forward, is that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's so good.
Moving forward, so with all your yeses, it led you, and we're going to keep names quiet on this one, but it led you to be basically a social media director for a pretty well-known person who, again, we're going to keep the names, but you're basically helping this person with their social media and with their audience. And I don't know how many followers this person has. I know it's in the hundreds of thousands. And so you moved into that. So can you speak a little, keeping privacy, but can you speak a little on that?
That's a crazy story too, because when I was planning on going to California, I remember thinking like, okay, God, like, we'll have waffles, but I don't know about that. And, we're doing this. But if you were to move me to California, like, I just was very specific, and I told God, okay, I would love to do social media for somebody, but I want it, and I was really specific. I was like, I want to be aligned with a vision. I want it to have purpose, and I want it to not, be totally not make sense to what I'm doing. I want to do it because this is what you've called me to do, and I have a vision for it. And on my way to California, I get a call, and somebody's like, hey, this person's looking for social media, said et cetera, like exactly what the vision was for my heart. And I felt like I needed to take a season where I just didn't work for 3 months and spend those 3 months in California. And after that, it was like God just opened so many doors to do social media, to be able to be on the go, and which is crazy because I had this vision probably a couple years ago where I was just like at a coffee shop. Not like an actual video, I was just thinking, like dreaming. I was like, man, it'd be so cool to get to work from coffee shops and travel and like do social media. Like, right, that's like the dream. But we talk about it as if it's like not actually possible instead of speaking into it as if it is already done.
Hear that.
Hear that. Like,
hear that right there.
And I just choose to live life of like, it's not this mystical thing. I just really believe that like God is capable and he is listening when I'm bringing him these requests of saying like, okay, God, this is what's on my heart. This aligns with yours. Cool. Yeah. Let's make it happen. I'm believing it's going to happen, and I'm not going to wait until it happens to take the risk. That's and so in everything, you see a pattern almost in my life where I've always been in the car going before I actually had the outcome. I was already on my way, and God showed up. It was the same thing. I moved to California, and I did not know where I was living at all. I didn't have a house lined up. They were like, you probably should kind of figure that on your own. But I felt God saying, no, I'm going to give you a house. So what did I do? One morning, I was writing in my journal, and I drew a picture of a house with 2 beautiful palm trees on the side, birds in the air. And on my way to California, again, I get a call, and they're like, hey, you're going to be living in this huge house with all these people. And the first morning I woke up, I went on the front patio, and I looked up, 2 palm trees on each side. I was just like in awe of God. And so I think with social media, it's kind of a similar thing where it just started with just a thought.
Right.
And then I acted on the thought of like, well, what could that look like? And you just start entertaining and picturing your life as if like you're already in that place.
Yeah.
And then I really believe that's when those opportunities come. There's times to strive, but I really just try to like put that in God's hands and just say like, there's no way I can make this possible. Things started coming up, which now I'm kind of in a place where I didn't realize it's the same thing with Harvest Waffles. Or I'm kind of launching a new brand a year later called Harvest Social, where I'm doing social media because waffles, it brings people together, and I want to be able to empower people in their vision and help other businesses get started.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I started getting into social media. If I can help people know their brand and know their vision so they can be equipped in social media and launching their businesses, then we're empowering the church and people outside of the church to step out and make a real impact in the marketplace.
So the Harvest Social, that was the post that got me to contact you for doing this, because there was some wording that you said, and I pay attention to like details on wording. Like because I like to see the heart in things. And you said your Harvest Social is not about you becoming famous, not you, but the people who want to come to this. It's a social media workshop, just for lack of a better terms, but it's more than that. So here it's more than that. But this social media workshop is, when you said it's not about you becoming famous, it's about you living up to your God-given potential, or however you said that. But it was like, okay, this is bigger. This is a heart thing. This isn't just a to-do. You're not showing people, again, I hope this is correct. I felt from your post that you're not just going to show people what's the best lighting to take a selfie to post on social media. You're going to talk about the heart and like the vision behind your brand. And so I was amazed by that.
This gets me so excited even thinking of it. That was a post, and it was really, which is funny you comment on that, because I just had this urge. I was in the kitchen one night, it was probably last week, and I was like, I need to make this post right now. Workshops were something where I thought about probably last year of like, man, that would be so cool to do. I've had a couple people come to me and say, I really feel like you're going to be doing workshops. And I was at the smoothie place where all the best things happen. And this lady comes in and was like, will you train me in social media? And I started thinking like, is this the time that I need to do this? And I was like, no, I'm in way over my head already. And then that night in the kitchen, I was like, I need to post this right now. And I run in my bedroom and I was like, I'm not thinking about it. I'm putting exactly what's on my heart. Because if you think too much, you end up getting like all this like weird, technical of like, I'm just trying to be this influencer. And I just wanted it to be what I actually felt. And so with social media, you're right. Like I want to train people on how they can make an impact, because even with Harvest Waffles, I have seen that. I mean, my parents took it over. They're running it. We do pop-ups. We've sold thousands of waffles. I've shipped waffles. I do pop-ups even in California. It's crazy. And I have not done any marketing. Like, and I have so much fun with it. And so I want to teach people the importance of having a vision with their social media, because I think it takes, I always say, I heard a friend tell me this, it takes a party to start a party. So like when you're the party, you will bring the party. And so I've just kind of taken that approach of really, I want to bring people together. So I'm doing this workshop next week where it's going to be in this creative space, and I'm going to go through even why aren't people present on social media? There's a lot of things we almost have to break through. A big one, especially within the church, is false humility. We just like really are just kind of, I want to be reserved. Like no one really wants to know my voice, but you're actually withholding your calling from the world. And so I feel like if people can be empowered with their vision, and then the practicals are important too, but when you have this approach of this lightheartedness, you can be saying the same thing but it can come across totally opposite. And so I've always been hesitant, not really wanting to get into business because I just always thought, I don't want to come across as this like
know-it-all
business,
I
get things done. But you can do that and still have a different approach going about that. And so that's my heart for social media.
Well, I'm really excited for all your adventures, but especially that one, because I do believe that we should be giving to others. I believe that's part of our purpose, is to always be helping other people fulfill their dreams. Speaking of John Till again, I told John Till, this was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He called me. He was at a conference that he was kind of like speaking at. And I always felt like my calling was that. Like my calling was to be that conference speaker. And something shifted 10 years ago in my brain, and in my heart, something shifted, and I started wanting to help others fulfill their God-given potential. And so when John called me, and I was on the phone with him, and he mentioned one of these. It was Chad Veach was sitting across from John, and Chad said, "So John, how did you get to where you were?" And he said, "I had to bring you up." And he said, when I first got to Sulphur, you took me under your wing. And he said, I would not be where I am with the Lord unless you invited me to come stream a conference at your youth group. And immediately the Lord said, see, Brady, I told you to help be a king maker, not the king. And that's something that's my heart about, is I mean, honestly, we all love the spotlight secretly, like that false humility thing. Like, we do all love the spotlight a little, but I want to get to the end of my life, and I want to be able to. There's a quote that Jonathan and Melissa from Bethel, songwriters, and she preached a message about plant trees that you will never rest under the shadow of.
Wow. Yeah.
And I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to plant seeds in people that I may not even see the fruit, and I just want to be a kingmaker. So for you to want to give back, because the business part of me goes, man, why are you teaching people your secrets? Like they should hire you to do their social media, and then you can make more money. But that's not the heart of who we are as Christians. What we should be doing is giving to people, and the Lord will reward you, and He already has, and He's going to continue to do that because of your heart. So
yeah, it's almost like redefining success, and if we can do that at an early age, it'll just save us so much striving, so much of that, because then you're living without fear, because you never want to do anything, especially in business, out of a fear of like lack, of like, I need to do this to make money. But if you're always doing everything unto the purpose of, I want to empower people, I want to serve, you'll always be taken care of, you'll always be provided for. And so I think for me, like, I can do those things because I have such a deep confidence in the Lord and His provision, where if I had absolutely nothing, but I feel so rich in joy, and I'm like, I really don't, honestly, like, I just feel like I could live without like anything. Even during quarantine, there were so many moments where I was like, how can I be so content? And I think all of my things in life, like being homeschooled, or, I've just really learned throughout my life to just be so content with so little, that one little thing that God pouring out, I just get so overjoyed. Like, I joke all the time that I just like hardly ever sleep, because I feel so filled up with joy. And I know that I can only explain that, of like, the joy of the Lord is just like, it marks my life, where I'm just so rich in community, I'm so rich in joy, I'm so rich in satisfaction, that everything else is like, it's almost like I can't give enough. Because if I already can't sleep, I'm just so filled up that you have to constantly just be like, I just have to give my life. I have to lay my life down. If I had nothing, I would be so content. And I've just found the secret to life really is just like, it's giving things up. It's constantly giving, saying no to good opportunities. Like, when you're so content and founded on the Lord, then no good opportunity will ever tempt you. You could be offered the best thing in the world, but you have to know your vision and what God's called you to, or else you'll be tempted to say yes to all these things when it may not lead to like the best thing. Yeah.
So. One of my leadership books I read whenever I was a teenager, it was an awesome book for those of us who don't like to read, because each chapter was like a page and a half. It was short little nuggets, and it was say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. And I try to live my life by that, which is hard though when opportunities are knocking, big opportunities, and if you don't have the vision, like you said, set forth, then you will say yes to every little thing.
Yeah.
And so
it's like taking those times to I joke about all the time that I started a business, and then I left to go to California, like gave it up so quickly. But I think for me, I just like really prioritize even like my soul and my rest and like my mental well-being. And I honestly was getting to a place where I was doing all these ministry things, planning all these events. I was doing business. I was working part-time, and I just got burnt out. And I just started noticing things like a little more less present, a little more snappy, a little more on the edge.
Right.
And I was like, this isn't the type of person I want to be. If I have to quit everything to throw myself in a city far away to rest with the Lord for 3 months, so be it, because my well-being is worth it, then my business thriving. And so I just so take that approach at life of like, even, you know, in busy weeks, I just mark it on the calendar of like, okay, it doesn't matter how much I still have to get done. I'm going to take these 2 hours and I'm just going to rest. And there's so many moments I just get away, or I go walk in my closet or go on a walk, and I just start thanking the Lord. I just start noticing the birds. I start listening to the sound of creation, and it calms my soul back down. Or having a good conversation with a friend when you know you have to get things done.
Right.
It's you have to almost constantly put yourself in things that make you uncomfortable because you know you really want to get things done. Us driven type of like, we just have to run. And it's like, no, maybe you just should lay down for a second or go on a walk or go work out, you know? Or move your life somewhere really far away. But it does, all of that gave me the energy to then come back. I joke it's almost like intervals. You know, you run really fast and then you walk really slow and then you run, and you end up going further over time and not getting hurt.
Well, one of the scriptures that impacted me forever has been the scripture about a good name is better than fine perfume. And so I live my life by trying to have a good name. And it's not because I want to be popular. It's my reputation means everything to me. And my wife always comments that Brady has no enemies. Like, I will not talk bad about somebody. Like, I don't want to have enemies. And it's because, number one, I never know what's in your heart. And so I just don't even want to go there. I don't want to be judgmental. You know, Matthew 7:1, do not judge or you too will be judged. So I try not to do that. And so whenever I see that quality in people, I really respect them. And that's one thing about you that I honestly respect is I don't know you too well. I mean, we're not buddy. But as what I know about you, and even the person who we're talking about who you do the social media work for, every time I'm around this person, because I'm friends with them, they brag about you and how well you are to work with and how fun you are, and you have a great name. And even though I mispronounced it at the beginning, but
that's okay, I'll forgive you.
You have a great name and a great reputation, and that's something that God has given you, and you are stewarding that calling so well. And so I just want to say congratulations. And so what is there, because we got to end. I could talk about this all day.
So fun.
And since this is our first one back, we're going a little longer because I haven't talked in a long time. But is there any like leadership books or something that you read when you were at, you know, Proverbs 31 or Elevation or something, or even in homeschooling, high school, that really impacted you, or was it just straight prayer and biblical, or is there any leadership books that you recommend for people?
Yeah, I would say there's two. There was one that when I was working at Proverbs, they had us read as a social media team, and it had nothing to do with business, but it was called Soul Keeping by John Ortberg. And if you're not familiar with Dallas Willard's teachings, like the wisest man, and it's all about tending to your soul. And they gave me that book, and we were supposed to read through it over a period of 6 weeks, and I read it in 1 weekend, and I'm not a big reader, but it was that good. And I remember getting so deeply convicted. I went to my boss's office the next morning. I knocked on her door, and I was just like bawling my eyes out in this office. And I was like, if you never sent me to another conference, but you gave me this book, you have changed my life. You would take so much time away and so much money if you would just give people this book. What that book taught on was the soul, and it really made me rethink the way I do life, the way I do business, the way I work. And so it changed me from the inside, which motivated me to want to work so well for my boss. It motivated me to want to do my job in so much excellence. So that book really shaped my life. And then the most recent book I just read is Vision Driven Leader by Michael Hyatt. And So good. And I would just recommend that book to everyone, no matter if you're in business, ministry, or anything, because it's all about writing a vision script for your life and
so
how
good.
important it is to really know where you're going. You really are. You create the roadmap to where you want to go.
Yeah.
And so when you're creating that, you kind of get to, make the choices along the way. So that book kind of goes through how you can write a vision script for your life and how you can implement that and, set goals. But it's just so important that you first know who you are, where you're going, because I think that's why a lot of things fail. And we get started on a lot of things, but we don't put the preparation work. And even before I started Harvest Waffles, I probably took like 6 months just to figure out what colors I wanted, Like, it was like, what colors are going to explain what I'm feeling in my heart? So if people never hear my words, they'll see it through a color. They'll see it through words, and they'll see it through a logo.
That's deep. That's really deep. See, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, I'll stop. Vision is important.
Before you leave to go back to California, you're coming back, or we'll do it remotely while you're in California, because that is so detailed that I love. I love that the color palette that you choose on your Instagram is important, because it speaks. So branding is important, who you are. But until you have that vision, you can't really set that. You can't really, because we know that colors represent feelings and emotions. And as marketing, I have a public relations degree, so we think about stuff like that. And so to hear you say that, but you got to know where you want to end before you begin.
Yes,
and so
you have to know who you are too. You have to know, and there's a lot of talk, you'll never be perfect to start, and that's so true, but I think it's worth taking the time, however long it takes, to know who you are and what you're called to, because you want to bring people along on that journey with you, and you want to be able to replicate who you are and build that, and so definitely worth the time.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. This was so fun.
You will hear from her again, I promise you. Even if it's not here, it'll be on some national podcast where she'll be talking. Maybe next time we can actually get some other people on with us, because again, I do believe that passion inspires passion. Party brings the party.
Party brings the party.
All that. We should have had your waffles. You didn't bring waffles.
Okay, I was going to bring you a waffle, and I was thinking, how am I gonna? I just started thinking of all the practicals. I just have to apologize on this podcast that I did not bring Brady a waffle.
It's all right. Next
time. He's bitter.
It's okay. I have had your waffle once because Kayla brought some home, and it was really good. I'm not a gluten-free guy, as you can tell.
I figured he wasn't, but that's okay.
Why? Because
I didn't know. I didn't figure that. You just don't strike me as the
that healthy type.
I really want to eat greens today,
I eat salad with tons of ranch dressing.
Croutons.
I like Main Squeeze every now and then.
Okay, that's okay.
So I was with the owner of Main Squeeze. Me and him were buddies, and we were sitting in his office at his other place, and they brought in a fresh juice that they just made, and he's like, "Oh, try this." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not really a juicer," and he's like, "No, I promise you like this."
He could convince anybody.
So I drank it, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's good." And so I left his main office and went to Main Squeeze and bought 6 bottles of it. And
shout out to Main Squeeze. I mean, Harvest Waffles wouldn't be a thing without it.
Wow,
Brady wouldn't like juice without Main Squeeze.
That's true.
This is not sponsored by Main Squeeze.
But I haven't had it since.
That's okay.
Sorry. But yeah, next time we'll do some Harvest Waffles. So look Kenzie up, especially if you're interested in social media. When's the social media workshop thing?
The workshop is next Friday, June 5th.
June 5th.
It's going to be downtown
so this
Lake
dates
Charles.
it, but I'm going to try to get this out early. So if you want to, have you booked up? Are you booked?
I have a few more openings. It's booking up really quickly,
okay.
So I have an Eventbrite with all the information.
All right, so you can look her up on Facebook, Kenzie Kober. You can find her Harvest Waffles all over, so Instagram, all those places. Or you can contact me, and I can get you in touch with her. So, again, thank you for joining us for Leadership Podcast. Even though this wasn't specifically on leadership, I'm fine with it because there were little nuggets throughout this entire thing about leadership and about vision and inspiration. So excited.
Yes, so fun.
All right, so we'll catch you next time on Leadership Podcast.